Rams house. Welcome into a brand new episode of the Rams Report by Chat Sports. We've got a lot of news and rumors to discuss on today's show as Sean McVay sounded off on a number of topics at the NFL owners meetings, plus some other news to discuss. But the headliner for sure is Davante Adams. The trade rumors we heard about last month, Sean McVay confirmed them today. All the details you need on today's show. Let's get into it. So, Rams fans, like I said, this is a loaded show. Maybe our most loaded show in the entire history of the Rams Report channel. The brief history, as we've only been kicking since early January. But we've got to talk about more news around the Puka Nacua situation off the field. We've got another update on that both today and over the weekend. We're going to discuss some new news around the logo. Obviously, we know the Rams are transitioning some things with the logo and the uniforms, and a major step in that process seemed to occur today. Davante Adams trade rumors, that's when we get into the NFL owners meeting discussion. Everything Sean McVay had to say will be covered on the back end of today's show as he talked about Davante Adams trade rumors, what exactly went down there when Mike Florio brought that up about a month ago. He talked a lot about the quarterback room and obviously the situation with Matthew Stafford, but also the backup situation. Is Jimmy G going to be back? Are the Rams considering drafting a quarterback? Lot to discuss there. And then lastly, he sounded off on our brand new corner, Trent McDuffie. So a lot to know on today's show. But before we get into it, make sure you stay locked in. We're going to cover all this news, and this is nothing new for us. Anytime there is news around the Los Angeles Rams, anytime there's news around this Puka Nacua situation, we are your one-stop shop for everything you need to know around this team. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you stay locked in. It's going to be an incredibly busy offseason. It already has. We are less than a month away from the NFL draft where the Rams have the 13th overall pick and are going to come away with a fantastic player, as Sean McVay said today. Make sure you're locked in, guys. What else can I say? You need to be aware of everything that's happening around this team, including the Puka Nacua situation. So obviously, not fun stuff to talk about here, but we got to be aware of it. Adam Grosbard, our reporter from The Athletic, he tweeted today, Sean McVay said the Rams have known about the Puka Nacua allegations since New Year's Eve, which is when the incident occurred. So they have known since the day that the incident occurred, which is exactly as we expected, and the team is still gathering details. And this is what Sean had to say around it. I trust this kid's heart. Love him. Put your arm around him. I want to continue to help him grow and really get all the appropriate facts before I rush to judgment. So that was McVay's comment on it. We'll talk about that a little bit more in 1 second. But before we do, I think it's also important to note that there was another development over the weekend around this situation, which is that Puka's accuser actually dropped her case for the temporary restraining order. She is still pursuing a civil lawsuit against Puka Nacua at this time. Important to note. He's not entirely out of the woods on this situation just yet. However, the temporary restraining order has been dropped. His lawyer, Levi McCathern, made a statement around that, saying that the reason that the temporary restraining order was dropped was because it was meritless, saying that the civil lawsuit is also meritless, and saying that the party will be paying Puka Nacua soon. But going back to what McVay said, I think this is kind of the exact stance that I've tried to take on this show the entire time around this situation. Wait for more info around this. Do not rush to judgment here. Do not rush to condemning on either sides of the aisle. I think McVay picks the exact right words here. We know Puka Nacua is a young man who is growing up. Rather than just condemning him in this situation, McVay takes the opportunity to say that he is trying to be there for him, trying to help him grow, trying to help him mature. I think this is the exact kind of conversation that somebody needs to have with Puka Nacua. Because even if this did not happen, the reality of it is Puka is surrounding himself with the wrong people. I think we could say that. At the end of the day, Puka is not making the right decisions off the field. He's not putting himself in the right situations, and that's part of maturing. That's part of growing up. And we all need to have those moments where someone sits us down and just says, hey, man, you got to get back on the right track here. And I think that's exactly what this was from McVay to Puka. So positive step there. We'll continue to keep you guys up to date around this situation. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are on. But let's keep rolling with another element of this Puka situation. Another piece of news that came out today. Kellen Moore, head coach of the Saints, said that Chris Olave and the Saints are currently engaged in contract extension negotiations. And this is something that absolutely affects the Rams. Whether you think it does or not, you got to remember here, we still, obviously with all the stuff going around with Puka off the field, it gets easy to lose sight of this, but the contract extension still needs to come at some point. And we know that every receiver deal in between us and Puka signing, or in between the JSN and Puka signing, is potentially going to move the market forward. Do I think Chris Olave is going to reset the receiver market? No. But if he gets $38 million, $37 million, even that gives Puka an argument to increase his payday. So this should be sounding alarm bells for the Rams, in my opinion. If they feel comfortable around the Puka Nacua situation, it's go time on getting a deal done as soon as humanly possible. You should consider the Saints your new competition in terms of getting that extension done, because any new deal that comes in for a receiver that is high profile like this is one that Puka is going to be aware of and trying to push his own contract forward with. Let's move on from the Puka discussion. Let's talk logo news. So here's what happened today. The 2026 NFL draft caps came out for 31 of 32 NFL teams. And would you like to guess the one that is missing? Yeah, it's us. It's the Los Angeles Rams. We are the only team in the NFL that did not get their draft cap released. And now, if you're a long-term viewer of this channel, you may be saying, that's weird, because I feel like I've seen the draft cap already. And you probably have. It looks like this, actually. We've all seen it. I know, right? So there it is. But what you might notice about this, and the reason why it went viral when it was originally leaked by Zach Cohen on Twitter, shout out to Zach Cohen, is that big, ugly yellow logo on the front of the cap. The solid yellow logo. It's the same logo it's always been since they rebranded, but now instead of the white to yellow gradient, it is now just solid yellow. And it not getting released with the rest of the draft caps. Remember, we discussed this at the time. We talked about, is there a chance that this is the next Rams logo, or is this just for the draft cap? A lot of people felt like it was just for the draft cap. I kind of felt like there was a decent chance this would be the new logo, especially combined with them using it on more social media copy. It not coming out with the rest of the draft caps, that's got to be confirmation, right? Like, that is quietly confirming, hey, this is the logo. We're waiting on the Rams to confirm that so that we can release the hat, but we can't do that until the Rams confirm that this will be their new logo. Why else would it not be out? I just literally cannot think of a single reason why New Era would delay releasing this cap if it wasn't the Los Angeles Rams saying, hey, we need to do our full rollout of the logo and likely the new uniform look before you can do that. And now what that means to me is that that's likely coming very soon, because obviously the draft is less than a month away. They need time for this cap to get sold and get on shelves and get available for people to order it and have it in time for draft day like they would want. So very likely that we're going to get the rollout of the Rams' new uniform or at least new logo in the next couple of weeks. And I bet that would maybe come with the date for the uniform reveal. But all of that aside, if this is, which it very much feels like it will be, the new Rams primary logo, how do you feel about it? I want you to grade it on a scale of A to F. You get to be the teacher today. Grade the new LA Rams logo for me. Give it an A if you're a huge fan, a B if you're like, a C if you're even more a D if you don't like it, and an F if you absolutely hate this thing. I'm going to give it an F, guys. I think this is lazy. It's way too yellow. Not a fan of this design direction. Wasn't really a fan of the original logo, to be completely honest with you. I always thought our secondary logo was a lot cooler, but this is even worse. All right, let's keep rolling. This is a busy and becoming long show, so we got to keep moving here. Lots of news to discuss out of the owners' meetings. Lot of things to talk about here, especially the Davante Adams rumors. I know this is probably on a lot of your minds. We talked about it off the top of the show. I want to put you at ease a little bit here by just saying this doesn't seem like it's going to happen now as much as it was on the table at a time. Here is what Sean McVay had to say, and it's a long quote. We have discussions all the time. I wouldn't say discussed. We really talked about some different avenues of onboarding other players and how it might affect Davante. And again, the question here was, did you talk about trading Davante Adams? I've talked with Davante about that. And if we felt like it was best for our team, we would have done that. But we didn't think it was best for our team. He continues, so excited about being able to move forward with him. I think one of those things that there's a lot of narratives that are out there. What I do think is important is that we address the things that our players could potentially be affected with. And so I believe in dealing with those things directly. He's a grown man and he's a great player. And so at the end of the day, there's a lot of different things that go on. We're always looking at ways to upgrade our roster and feel like we can be as competitive as possible. There's discussions, there's dialogue. It never got to that, seemingly referring to actually trading him. There are scenarios that could have come up that we absolutely could have, and if we felt like it was best for our team, then it would have happened, but we didn't. I'm not going to lie, guys, this surprises me a lot. Obviously, it doesn't go through. It doesn't seem like the way he's speaking about it, that it's still a discussion that it's being had. But the idea that trading Davante Adams was ever on the table at all is very surprising to me. And I think logically, right, the only reason you would have done this would have been to go acquire A.J. Brown, which is kind of the direct takeaway from everybody's assessment of this. But if you're moving on from Davante Adams in doing so, then my thought was always, originally, my thought with acquiring A.J. Brown was always, okay, now you have the best receiver trio in the NFL. You have Puka Nacua, you have A.J. Brown, and you have Davante Adams, all three filling roles for you. But if getting A.J. Brown meant moving on from Davante Adams, then I have to question what the plan was at the end of the day. Was it to just roll with Puka and A.J. Brown as a great 1-2? Not that that would have been not that that wouldn't have been a fantastic 1-2, but is that better than having an unbelievable combination of three receivers? I don't really think so. Was the plan to then draft a receiver at 13 to introduce as the third option behind Puka and AJ? I think there's a number of different combinations there. But at the end of the day, I'm guessing the price was just too high. If it even got to the point where the Rams were putting offers on the table for the Eagles. And that's the other part of this discussion that seems to be kind of the undercurrent of everything Sean is saying, right? Is it doesn't really seem like anything went that far. He just kind of continues to undercut the notion that they were trading Davante Adams every time it's even talked about. He's like, yeah, we had that discussion, but it didn't really go very far. Or, yeah, we talked about this, but we're really excited that Davante is coming back. At the end of the day, I don't think it was a very serious discussion to trade Davante Adams, but I do got to admit, I got a little egg on my face here because when this was originally reported, when Mike Florio originally brought this up, I thought that this was a ridiculous notion. I thought that there was no chance that the Rams would trade Davante Adams. But apparently, it was discussed. It was on the table. And it goes back to the point of the Rams will do everything possible. They will explore every avenue possible to improve this team and to win now. They are not a team that really cares about what you've done for them even lately. If they feel like they could move off of you to improve, they will do it. And that's cold, but it's also the best path forward for the team. And at the end of the day, that's the reality of it. If the Rams felt that there was a better move for Davante that could have improved the team, they would have made it. But it doesn't seem like that move ever came up, so the Rams are moving on. Speaking about moving on, there's always the discussion that the Rams may have to move on from Matthew Stafford following the 2026 season. Obviously, Stafford is getting up there in age. Retirement was considered last offseason. It was briefly considered this offseason as well before he ultimately elected to come back. And this was a topic of conversation for Sean with Kay Adams, especially. Kay Adams and him sat down today for an interview. And they talked about a number of different things. One of which is how he approaches future quarterback decisions with Matthew Stafford currently on the roster. And I think a lot of that conversation is quite interesting at the end of the day, because essentially what he says is we have open dialogue with Matthew Stafford about potentially drafting a quarterback, about bringing in backup options for him, and about trying to gauge where Stafford is at in terms of his decision making about moving on from football after the season, or about whether or not he wants to come back. And a couple of the things that he said really stood out to me. So number one, when Kay Adams pressed him on the idea of, are you guys looking into a backup quarterback? And in her words, she said, because you do not have one, he did not contradict that statement. The idea that Stetson Bennett is the backup quarterback for the Rams seems to be untrue in the mind of Sean McVay. And that's something I've been telling you guys for a while. The Rams do not view Stetson Bennett as the backup quarterback to Matthew Stafford. They view him as QB3. They view him as a potential long-term developmental project. And honestly, I really couldn't even tell you why he's still on the roster at this point. I think this may be the final offseason that Stetson Bennett spends with the team, because McVay said it over and over again today in interviews with Kay Adams and in interviews with Mike Florio. They need to continue to address that room. Now, does addressing that room look like Ty Simpson? That was another topic of conversation. Kay Adams outright asks McVay, how do you feel about Ty Simpson? What is the thought process with Ty Simpson? And McVay's response was kind of interesting, because he actually said, I think you probably know more about Ty Simpson than I do, to Kay Adams. Which, no disrespect to Kay Adams, but I don't really think she's a film junkie, right? I don't think Kay Adams is grinding Ty Simpson tape all day long. I mean, maybe she is. If she is, hell yeah. But I don't, that's not really her game. You know what I mean? So the idea that she knows more about Ty Simpson than Sean McVay does is kind of telling that Sean McVay and the Rams as an organization are not really looking that hard into Ty Simpson. And if they're not looking that hard into Ty Simpson, are they looking that hard into quarterback early at all? Seems like the answer is probably no. I think the best option for the Rams, and the option that they're most interested in, is a veteran quarterback. Here's what Sean McVay had to say on the backup situation. Jimmy G is working through his process right now. We would love to be able to have him. There's some other guys that are out there, but we do need to be able to add another guy into that room. Like I said, he outright said it, guys. We need another face in the room. And that's something that we're looking at. And, obviously people make some of the connections with Kirk Cousins. If it doesn't work out with Jimmy G, that's definitely someone that I have tremendous respect for. Kirk is as influential as anyone in helping me get to LA in the first place, and so I know he's got some other options and some other suitors, but Jimmy and Kirk are guys that I would love to have back. So, hey, Kirk Cousins is in the discussion for the Rams. That's something else to know. We talked about that not too long ago when Brock Vieira of Sports Illustrated reported that as being the case, and there was a lot of vitriol around that idea. But Sean McVay is open to it. Obviously, he's worked with Kirk in the past. Obviously, Kirk worked with Zach Robinson last season. So definitely makes sense in a number of ways. But it seems like Jimmy G remains option number one. Jimmy G remains plan A for the Rams at this point, at least in the way that McVay is speaking about it. So expect Jimmy G back as the primary option. I'd give that more than a coin flip's chance at this point. Let's round out today's show with some Trent McDuffie discussion. Lot of praise and a little bit of discussion of the new role for Trent McDuffie at the owners' meetings today from Sean McVay. Here's what he had to say to Adam Grosbard that I know a lot of you guys are going to get excited about. Sean McVay on new Rams corner Trent McDuffie, he could do a lot of things that were similar to what made Jalen Ramsey such a special player for us. Yeah, number 5. Calling back to number 5 in the impact that he had on this defense. And for Rams fans who were big Ramsey fans, that gets you excited. And hey, I was as big a Ramsey fan as anybody when he wore the soul and blue. And this would be exciting if we could have a factor, an impact maker, a difference maker like that. We all know exactly how much we needed it last season. I just think about the NFC Championship game. and getting shredded by Jackson Smith and Jigba. The Rams made sure that that cannot happen again. We addressed that position this offseason with the trade for Trent McDuffie, with the signing of Jalen Watson, with the extension for Cam Curl, with the extension for Quentin Lake, a number of moves to improve this secondary and to build on the best elements of this core. And I don't think they're done yet. But what is Trent McDuffie's role going to be in this Rams defense? That was a question that Kay Adams brought up for Sean McVay, and his answer might surprise some of you guys. She asked him, will we see Trent McDuffie in the slot, referring back to the fact that he played the highest percentage of slot snaps in his career during the 2 years in which he was selected to an all-pro team. And he responded, I think you're going to see him in a lot of different spots, where you can move him around and you can take advantage of the fact that he's a guy who can play in a lot of locations. Quentin Lake can do that too. And here's the thing too. What I respect about what Spags did is he moved him based on where they needed him the most, and it was exciting, and I'm glad that we got him. I want to focus in on the last part of that because I think that's going to be the mindset for the Rams. And it probably should be the mindset for any team when you're approaching any player, especially any player of the caliber of Trent McDuffie. You use them where you need them most. Where do the Rams need Trent McDuffie most? At outside boundary corner. That's the number one thing here, right? Like, we have a slot corner. We have a nickel in Quentin Lake. I know he struggled at times last season, but I don't think moving him back to safety is best for this team either because Cam Curl and Cam Kinchins have those spots locked down. At that point, the most logical option is to put Trent McDuffie at boundary corner 1 and Jalen Watson across from him at boundary corner 2 for 2 reasons, in my opinion. Number 1, because Quentin Lake isn't capable of playing that position. And number 2, because they have experience doing that together. Trust that Quentin Lake continues to improve playing in the nickel. He dealt with injuries last season. At times, he was really good when he was playing in the slot and in the nickel. I think this is something that he can do. I know. I absolutely know. But it's going to have to be Trent on the boundary, in my opinion, and Jalen opposite him. That's going to be your look in the secondary primarily. Maybe you mix that up a little bit, especially if injuries come up, and really more when injuries come up. It's kind of an inevitability of this game. But that, I think, in an ideal world, is where McDuffie will spend the majority of his time, is playing that number 1 boundary corner spot. But let me know. Where do you think McDuffie will play the majority of his snaps? In the slot? Give me a slot in the comments, or outside as a boundary corner. Give me an outside in the comments. Sound off for me, Rams fans. Let me know where you think Trent McDuffie will line up the most. And that's going to round it out for today's episode of the Rams Report by Chat Sports. I know it was a long one. Shout out to you if you made it to this point in the video. You are an absolute real one. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button on your way out. And I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode of the Rams Report, where we're going to be breaking down what I think might be the worst 7-round mock draft ever.